because I worked with toxic teams, I know we can't implement positive change within that because they don't want to change. So no matter what we do, and some people would be like, oh, we'll just take the project, we'll take the money. And I'm like, it was stressful. It kept me up at night in a bad way. And because I wanted to help these people and they didn't want to be helped.
Welcome to Seriously, Catherine, a podcast about taking your business seriously, but not yourself. On this week's episode of Seriously, Catherine, I'm joined by my friend, Kate Potvin. I am so excited for you guys to hear her story, meet her, and let's jump right in. Hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited. You're going to be on the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so can we talk about, I didn't know this about you, that you already had a podcast?
I did. Well, let's take that back a little bit. The podcast is a big term for what I did. But during COVID, I was like, I just want to keep meeting cool people.
Yeah.
Or just talking to cool people. And obviously we couldn't go anywhere. So I just did the Zoom thing. I called it Person of Interest. I had Paul Hook edit it for me, who was amazing. And he threw it up on social media. I'm not the biggest social media person, which we should talk about that. But so it was a big thing for me because I'm usually not putting myself out there like that.
Yeah.
But it was really, really fun so I kept talking to cool people and talked to this young golfer who was in town for, there's a tour during the summer. It's hosted by one of the local country clubs, and she was a killer golfer. And so she was on, did other business owners in the area. And it was just such a fun thing to do.
So was there any agenda to it?
No.
Or it was just fun?
No.
It's the best projects.
We just talked about anything and everything, right? What makes them interesting.
Yeah.
From kind of their backgrounds to being business owners or athletes or whatever it was. And just it went every which way.
Yeah. Well, what I find most interesting about you
oh boy.
I've always admired you're this professional woman in business, but then you open your mouth and you're a real person. You're not a robot. And I think a lot of times we see that in women in leadership or professional, roles. They're just like robots. Mm-hmm. And I've never been able to really play in that arena because I am just, myself.
Yeah.
But so tell me how you do that.
So it's one of the things that I have definitely admired about you. I was like, Catherine is Catherine. And, when I graduated from college, I entered the workforce, I would see these women behave in a manner where I was like, what is wrong with them?
Yeah.
Why are they trying to be robotic? And then when they were out of the spotlight, when they were out of the boardroom, I got their real personality. And I'm like, why are we doing two roles here? Why is there two personality types? And so I was always intent on not being that person. Yes, you have to be a chameleon, in certain ways, shapes, or forms at times, right? Just to sometimes meet people where they are as far as their personality. But I always just was like, why can't people just be themselves and not have to, be in that robotic way? So that's just kind of how I started out. And sometimes maybe I could have pulled it back a little bit. But I I kind of like myself, and I just want to be who I am. Right.
And we all should like ourselves, And something I've recognized is I used to be really, really hard on people who I felt were a different version of themselves, depending on who they're speaking to or who else was in the room at the table, whatever. But now I sort of just acknowledge, maybe they don't have it in them to be their authentic self. And it takes a lot of courage and confidence to sort of show up in a way like that. Mm-hmm. I feel like I was just sort of brought up that way, but not everybody is. So I try to give people grace, but anything that I can do to sort of surround myself with people who are doing it in the way that I emulate or aspire to be like. I like to surround myself with people who know what they're doing and they're demonstrating that confidence, authenticity, vulnerability, and professionalism. You can have all those things in one person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that I specifically remember growing up, and it's in my head to this day, is my mother had great one-liners. And one of the one-liners was, always be true to yourself. and don't try to be a second-rate version of someone else. Just be you, authentically you. And so when she would see me I would change my personality to be around other people. She's like, remember, just be true to yourself because you're good who you are. And so that's always stuck with me.
Yeah. So sort of in a nutshell, what do you say you do? Because for me, I feel like you are multifaceted. You can take on different projects. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you consider yourself a solo entrepreneur? Do you consider yourself sort of give us the gist or the whatever you're...
Sure. So Stragility can be like, if you have to put us into a bucket, which I hate being put into a bucket, but sometimes people just need to hear things that they can comprehend easily. It's business and management consulting for small and medium-sized businesses, even though, I'm a New York State certified WB, so we've done large New York State projects and worked with larger companies, but the sweet spot really is small and medium-sized businesses, that we can help them grow in a manner that works for them, because everybody has their own definition of what growth means. And so we really focus on that strategy, the strategic planning, market research, and talent optimization. So how do you really grow the best teams that work for you? And so there's a lot that goes into each of those buckets, but that's really what we focus on. We know what we're great at. And I started it because I just worked for these other companies for a couple of decades and saw these consultants come in, and they would never build relationships with us. They would never really get to know what our real challenges are, and they would never help us implement and influence positive change. Mm-hmm. Right? So it was cookie cutter. It was rehearsed processes. It wasn't really helping the client in the way that they needed to be helped. Right? So I was like, if you guys can do this, we can do it better.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell myself that a lot. Like, if this guy can do it, I can definitely do it. Like there's nothing that you can't do. And I think another thing that I sort of struggle with or get frustrated by is that I want to do it all. I sort of had that frustration where it's like, oh my God, this isn't good enough. So I can get in there and at least influence a better way of doing it, or collaboratively be part of something to make it better. That sounds like I'm really conceited, but it's just this sort of, I demand better. Mm-hmm. And I want to be around people who are going to put that best foot forward. And anyway, we brought you on at Palette. And so I wanted to dispel the myth, because for a long time I felt like, well, I didn't really need anybody to come in and help me with my team when my team is just me and Marcella. Mm-hmm. So, sort of dispel that myth. Like, when you mean you're coming in to help people with management teams, it could be one person. Mm-hmm. And, managing subcontractors or a 2-person team, a partnership. And sort of what I think you did best with us is help us communicate more effectively and hold each other accountable.
Mm-hmm. And you and Marcel are so great to work with, and I love you because you're like, I want to do all these things. And part of that process was to really understand the methodology of less is more, right? And focus on the right things. And if you can focus on those things, you will scale. The revenue will come. The profit will come. But if you can just find those 2, 3 major goals, you will get there. And so, I think that was great working with both of you, because you were like, I want to do all these things. And I'm like, and I love you for that. But maybe we focus on just a few of the things to start. So I hope you found that helpful. The less is more.
Absolutely did. Yeah, I absolutely did. And I mean, this is something that Marcella and I have worked on together over at least the last year. But prior to that, we had come into this situation, this business together, having worked with each other before. So I think there was a lot of steps we were able to sort of skip over. But working with you forced us to go back to the basics and not just assume, I knew what Marcella really wanted to do or felt was valuable for her time, you know what I'm saying? And vice versa. And Marcella's brilliant. I mean, she's very she's got to be telepathic. She constantly is reading my mind, but that sometimes is enabling, right? And so it keeps us from really having important organizational, structural managerial conversations and dialogue on how the business is doing or where we're going next. And I think also coming out of COVID, there was just like such survival mode, and we're very good in crisis situations. So we were still sort of like in this like, well, wait a minute, if there's no like chaos, or there's no like catastrophe that needs solving, well, then what do we do? And so it was great timing for you to come in and sort of like help us coordinate ourselves.
And what the two of you have a great dynamic. You have the trust, the trust is everything. We've gone into teams where there is no trust, and it's toxic, and it's chaotic to the point where nobody can get anything done. But, the conversations aren't happening in the way that they should. The leaders have, this inflated, mindset about what the company looks like. And it's actually not reality. And I think that you, Marcella, definitely, you had your, come to Jesus moments, and, you are truthful with one another, and you could have that clear communication, which is everything. And not a lot of people can have that.
Yeah, I mean, and I find like with leaders, right? Like when you think of yourself as a leader, you sometimes get a big ego, right? And then you don't surround yourself with people who are comfortable telling you like, hey, dude, you're full of shit, or like, hey, back down, or like, okay, like come back down to earth sort of thing. And in my opinion, I've always looked to Marcella as like a co-founder, partner. Like I literally, I'm not trying to like self-deprecate, saying like, oh, I couldn't do it without her. Sure I could, but it's not something that I want to do. And it certainly wouldn't be as much fun as we're doing it together. And so being able to have those hard conversations with each other in a way that is, just effective is not that we weren't doing that, but I think after working with you, it's a more like, writing things down and checking them off and being on the same page about what we're working on, instead of just like, I think it was, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I thought it was just so helpful. And I guess bringing it back is like, at first I didn't think that it applied to me, like, because we were such a small team. So it's like you're working with, but because we were able to put some of these processes together, now we can grow our team more easily to bring somebody on board. Because that's another thing we sort of have been challenged with. Like, we bring somebody on and they're not as hardworking as we are, or they're not like, they don't have the big, what do you call it? Like just the big picture mentality about what the company is or the impact that it's making. And anytime we've ever brought somebody on, it's been like, they're not going to work out, because it's like, they're just not picking up what we're putting down, and they're not committed. And, like, how do you find that person? Well, it's like having your help to put all that together, like job descriptions. And like when you come into a really toxic team, like, I mean, I don't think Marcella and I are like that toxic, but it can certainly you can get into your own way if you get too comfortable, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I learned early on what toxic looks like. And now I know enough when I'm doing kind of an insight and discovery conversation, even before we've agreed to work with one another, to determine whether or not the team and company are toxic. And the answer is no. Right? I used to be like, yes, we'll take on anyone that wants to work with us. But now it's because I worked with toxic teams, I know that we can't implement positive change within that, because they don't want to change. So no matter what we do, and some people would be like, oh, we'll just take the project, we'll take the money. And I'm like, it was stressful. It kept me up at night in a bad way. And because I wanted to help these people and they didn't want to be helped.
Yeah.
And so, they're like, well, we've got to clarify our vision. We need to set our goals. But they were just screaming at each other. So the team is everything. People have said it for a million years that it starts with the people, and it is 100% true. And so I can give you the process for, how to build a simplified and focused plan for your company that will help you scale and grow. But unless you have the right people with you and you're having some fun along the way, which is not a bad word to have, that fun is incorporated.
Yeah.
To me, it's necessary. We laugh. I work with 99% women, right? And there's one male that works with us who's a blast. But, we get it done, but we have so much fun getting it done. And these are smart ladies. These are the ladies where we, like you, we looked around, we're like, what? What? You're running that company?
Yeah.
Right? I think we can do this.
Yeah.
And, we're like, we can run circles around those people. And so it was that makeup of the team, right? That was everything. So yeah, I am a hard no on the toxic work environments.
Yeah.
And they can be identified very easily.
Yeah. So I also feel like there were because you helped us incorporate EOS, which what is it? It's Entrepreneur Operating Systems.
Entrepreneurial Operating Systems.
Yeah. There's a book. There's a couple of books by it and everything. But I feel like I read one of the books and it was just over my head. I was like, okay, I don't know how to take all these practices and implement them. So that's what was so valuable and helpful to us is like having you tell us what to do and how to like incorporate these processes in our everyday sort of like meetings and ongoings, and it kept us focused on what we were working on or trying to accomplish. And there are these terms like visionary, integrator, and what would you say is most important or most priority, or is it both of them? Like, I just kind of want you to talk about, because I never thought, people were like, oh, you're a visionary. And I think that word is such a big word. It's like, I don't know if I'm a visionary. I have lots of ideas and I have lots of dreams, but I also do take action. So you really helped us figure out what our roles were. Like this, aspirational organization chart we did early on was so important and so powerful, because I think before we worked with you, it was like, yeah, Marcella does everything and I do everything and we all just do everything and we're all responsible for everything and we do it together. And it was just like, that's not true. That's not actually correct. And when it came down to it, it was like Marcella does everything. And Catharine comes up with new ideas and she dances around. She talks to a lot of people. But what are the actions that I'm taking? What are the actions that Marcella's taking? So would love for you to sort of break that down, or, in a quickly like synopsis of how important defining those roles is for an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to your point about the books they talk about EOS, they talk about visionary, integrator. I'm not a huge corporate jargon type of girl. So what I say to clients is I'll just break it down with you. It's like Cliff's Notes version, right? So you're in high school and you're like, don't want to read the 500-page book. I'm like, listen, I got you. I can break this down super easy for you to understand in a way that makes sense for your business. But it does start with the roles. What are you doing? What's your team doing? You can do visionary, integrator. You can come up with your own terms. I really don't care. But it's more important about these are the top things that I'm accountable for, that I'm going to own, that I am going to follow through with. And these are the things that you're going to do, and make sure that there's not overlap, right? So have that clarity of roles and expectations is one of the major things that people overlook, and people are stepping on each other and nobody knows who's doing what. And so that's really what we start with. And it was very apparent when we started working together. I was like, okay, so Marcella, we're going to put a little lasso on you, maybe, because that girl would go and do and
burn out. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Right. So, no, but I would say that that's probably one of the most important things to start with is, EOS refers to it as accountability structure. You can call it, again, whatever you want, but it's really just the clarity of roles and finding that focus.
Mm-hmm. And would you say a lot of small business owners, like it was hard for me to like go from small business owner, and then people are like, oh, you're an entrepreneur. And I'm like, I don't think I'm an entrepreneur. Like, what does that word mean? That just seems such a big word, And then it's like, no, I'm a visionary, So it's like, it's sort of like dialing into what that role is and what you've accomplished, like looking back and be like, no, Catharine, you really are a visionary. Look at what you've been able to create, or you really are an entrepreneur. You are a partial owner of like multiple businesses, so it's like, it helped me to be told, like, no, this is true. This is true about you. Right. And then owning that title and owning that role and standing in that. And my hope is that I can inspire other people to own their shit or own their role. And like, yes, you're a visionary. Yes, you're an entrepreneur. And just like tips or tricks of like, do you find that a lot of small business owners are like, oh, no, that's not like, that's not who I am.
Yes, to simply answer it, absolutely. And I would say that, I've always been big into, never like, oh, this is a woman-only thing or a men-only. Like, I try to treat the genders like equally, but I have seen that women are more like, oh, wow, that seems like a big role. And I'm like, girl, you got this. Like, this is just what it means. Like, and if you want to call yourself something different, call yourself something different. But I think it's just that in embracing that power and really feeling comfortable and confident with it. And as women, there is a confidence gap. And, it's really how do we bridge that? And it starts when teeny tiny little people, right? It starts in elementary school. I have my 14-month-old daughter and like I'm teaching her stuff right now. That girl listens, and I share what I can with her so that she can understand it, but it will continue without, being too much.
Yeah.
But, there is that confidence gap.
Yeah. And I've listened to recently, we kind of touched on this, is like the thought that, I mean, I used to say this about all sorts of different people, like the president of the United States or former president of the United States or Walt Disney. I say this about him all the time. Well, like if Walt Disney could do it, I mean, I'm sure he was great to be around. He was, exceptional leader. We hear so many positive things about him, but he's just a dude. He's just a guy who somehow, was able to communicate his ideas and his vision and got people, around him. I mean, we see that all the time. And I just always sort of, not that I want to take down these people, but just like do want to take them down a notch because they're just humans, right? Mm-hmm. They're not like all knowing. And I think a lot of the times the difference is that they set out to do a thing and then they just didn't quit. They just kept on going no matter what. And I think that's easier said than done. But I think that's the difference for me between people who are successful and people who are not. It's the ones who are successful, they just kept adapting and evolving and they just didn't stop.
Resilience.
Yeah.
Resilience is key. Get back up, and it's a daily thing.
Yeah, and if you do think Walt Disney's wife wasn't like helping a brother out.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? She was absolutely the conductor.
Yes.
On that, in that orchestra. But no, it's like a lot of women are just, they don't get that you have to keep going. And it doesn't matter the pace. Just keep going. Just start. First of all, let's just start with that incremental step with whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter, right? Is it, getting back to the gym? Is it, doing a house project? Is it doing something with your kid? Is it like, doesn't have to be all business all the time, right? And it's just that resilience of keep going regardless and have those incremental steps. And when you get, a shitty Google review or whatever it is, just we often spend too much time on things where we go down the rabbit hole and we vent and we bitch. And it's like we've wasted so much time doing that. And time is the one thing you will never get back.
Yeah.
So how are you using it? And, that's my social media rant where I'm like, these people are like, oh, men and women are like, oh, I don't have enough time in the day. And I'm like, you do. You've got the same amount that I do.
Right.
How are you using it?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's how are you using your time? Are you being resilient? What's the focus? Take the incremental step, and you can get there with whatever that goal is.
So did you work in corporate and left corporate to do your own thing? Is that sort of the segue? So can you talk about that leap? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people listening who are miserable and they're sick and tired of, their bosses or their toxic teams or, we saw a lot of this during COVID where people felt like they had the permission to exit the corporate world and do their own thing. But you did that a long time ago.
Yeah. So it was really, I think for me, what happened was in my late 20s when I saw consultants come in, I was like, again, I think I can do this better. And I kept thinking about things through the years, and it wasn't until I was almost 40 that I was like, okay. I was like, we're gonna try this. And I had the support of my husband, and he's like, you've been talking about this for over a decade. Why don't you just try? And I was like, great. And I was like, oh, wait, what am I going to do? So I had to think about what I really loved to do and what I was actually decent at. Right? I can evolve the skills, but I had that burn in the belly where I was like, and I look back and I'm like, oh my God, it was such a hot mess when I started, but that's okay because I at least started.
Right.
And like my website was crap. Like, I took on any client that had a breath, like was breathing. And then things evolved over time. And I was unapologetic about it because I was like, this is how I grow.
Right.
This is, what's going to get me to where I want to be. And I've never looked back because I had to leave, being, an employee to be better, right? I learn better when I'm left to my own devices, right? I know how to use my time. I love reading and learning and surrounding myself with the right people. So I just kept going.
Yeah.
Right.
And then so some might say you were able to show up and keep going because you didn't have kids at home, but that changed drastically in last year or so. So I would love for you to sort of share that experience and like, has that shifted your perspective on how women show up in the world or in the workplace? And
yeah, so, just the quick little adoption story about how we had 48 hours notice before we had Victoria land in our laps, 3 days old. But we had gone through the adoption process, had been waiting a little over a year and got the call. And usually you have, the birth mother is 3 months pregnant, so you got the 6 months to prepare. Well, this was a bit of a different situation. And I know others have gone through it. And it's, we had 48 hours notice. And so it was a shit show. But we got it together. And thank God we have a really strong community and network because people and we hadn't told anybody, right? That was the part where we went through it quietly and privately. And I understand in this day and age, that's like the reverse of what everybody does because there was no social media posts, there was nothing. And people kept texting me like, wait, you have a child?
Well, I feel like, I'm not going to say I was the first one to find out, but was it around Christmas time that this happened?
It was a month later. It was in January.
Okay, so I was at like a late Christmas party and you had sent me
because you were at EO.
Yeah.
And then I kept getting these texts from EO members. I was like, I'm sorry, I think I just heard you have a child.
Because, I mean, if you tell me that like, okay, this is top secret confidential, don't tell anybody, I can keep that secret. But if you don't disclose that, and you clearly said it wasn't a secret, it's like, I mean, I have a kid now. Like, people are going to find out one way or another. Might as well, like, tell people, right? But we were working together closely at that time. And so I feel like I had just seen you or we had a meeting or something. And so I had a photo of Victoria and I was, like, showing everyone. I'm like, oh, my God, Kate's got a baby. This is so exciting. And these are all people that know you well. And they were like double takes. What? Like, you're not talking about Kate Potvin. I'm like, yes, I am. It's a baby. We got a baby.
Yes, it was one of my close friends. She recently said to me, she's like, you considered that like your party trick for 2023 where you were like, I mean, it was just something my husband and I wanted to keep to ourselves.
Well, because you don't really know what the outcome is going to be, right? Like, I mean, we've all heard horror stories where, you get picked, you show up, and then the mother changes the mind or whatever, So, like, it's so stressful. It's like, I don't know if it's like buying a house because I'm in the process of this right now. And like at any moment it could fall through, but it's like you're a nervous wreck. And so like, I mean, yeah, I totally respect not telling anybody until like, like it's a done deal.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And it was actually very peaceful to go through because I didn't have people. I'm not the type of personality that I don't need permission or approval. I don't need the attention. Right. So I didn't need people asking me every 2 seconds about things because that just actually annoys the shit out of me. I just wanted to like go through it calmly with Matt and just have this be our thing.
And no judgment, right? Because was that a concern for you? Like that people were like, oh my God, what is she doing right now? No. Yeah, I don't think you don't come across as like you give 2 shits about what anyone thinks of you. You're going to do what you want. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, because we're later in life parents, and this goes back to what you were saying about starting a business. I didn't have kids at that time, but I knew it was in the pipeline. And we went through our own journey with different things. And, it was, so when Victoria arrived on the scene, we had nothing, not one, like nothing, like not even a little toy for the poor child. So we had to like get our shit together. We're still both working full time. We're trying to figure out childcare. You know, you can't do anything with childcare until you have a child, or at least know a time frame, which we didn't know either. And so we just like had to figure it out. And I look back at like my camera reel from 2023. I was like, how the hell did we do everything that we did, right? Because we still traveled together. I still like did girls trip. I still grew my business. Victoria is a very happy baby, and like, but we had so many awesome people that helped us out and chipped in, and like, you know, it was overwhelmingly like, holy crap. Like, this is pretty amazing.
Yeah, you had the village, right? Ready to be deployed.
Like a small continent, more like it.
Yeah,
it was
yeah, that's awesome. But I also love your sort of like, and I say this too, where it's like these children joined my life. My life doesn't revolve around my children, and that doesn't mean I love them any less than anybody else. I love my kids, but I also love my own time, my own life, and my own things. And,
absolutely.
And I love that you're able to. I mean, it seems very effortless that you're able to sort of juggle both these roles, and one doesn't outweigh the other, and one doesn't become like, because I mean it could have gone the other way where you're like, you know what, I'm done. I have a baby now, and the rest of my life is not important, and I'm gonna just obsess over this baby, you know. And I do feel like there's a different experience when you're adopting a child, right? Where, you know, I think when I'm trying to figure out how to say this, it's like I have friends that have adopted, and it makes me think I take my own children for granted, you know, like you get this whole time with them while you're growing them inside of you. And then, you know, you have this baby. And I just think sometimes I almost feel like it's a more valuable experience to adopt than to have your own kids. In my personal opinion, I don't want anybody to come for me right now, but it's just a different experience. And I would think a more appreciated, you know, what do you call that? Like, I just feel like you really appreciate this child, right?
Yeah, no, and it's one of those things.
Don't you appreciate your child? What am I saying? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and here's the thing with my relationship with Victoria, and I was very honest, like, not that I would be anything else, but very honest with people about my journey with her, and the fact that I knew she and I would get there with our relationship, right? I wasn't like, oh my God, I need this baby to love me immediately. I was like, we're doing the slow roll right now, and our relationship is going to evolve, right? Because, you know, I get the call, and then 48 hours, I have a child in my lap. I was like, whoa, like this is a little crazy, and I was like, all right, kid, I got a lot I want to do in life, so we're going to have to meet in the middle here. Right?
Yeah, I got a meeting on Tuesday.
Exactly. I after she was 4 days old, and I had to go on a 3-day work trip, and I was like, "You're gonna be great. Your dad's awesome. See you in a few."
Yeah.
And but one of my philosophies was always, and I'll explain this after I say it, and it sounds like it's what you're saying as well, is make yourself irrelevant, which means that I don't need to be the hero to my child, right? She can see me as that, but I don't need to be the end all be all. I don't need to be her everything. She will be so loved. She will be an awesome individual. We will lead by example, but I want her to understand that she doesn't need to come to me for everything. She can go to this, community around her. Mm-hmm. We will always be there for her, but I also need her to figure things out, right? Like, because a lot of people are like, I need to feel that love. I need to be her everything. I think a little bit differently about that. And, I was watching this interview with this woman. She was like, she's this very well-known psychologist, and she was like, make yourself irrelevant to your child. And I was like, that's what I was just doing, right? Because I'm like, she can know so much else beyond me. I will be her rock, but...
Yeah, well, I also think, too, like, the thought that you have it all figured out and you're all-knowing just because you're a mother, it's just, like, such bullshit. And it's a disservice to your children
Totally.
to not surround them with people who are different than you, who have a different experience to pull from and maybe a different perspective on the same situation, you know? So I like really pride myself on surrounding these girls. Like, you know, I want Posey to run away. I want her to run away. I want to come straight to Kate's house, or I want to go straight to Aunt Jackie's house, or straight to Mandy's house, my sister-in-law. Like, I need her to be able to go run to other people. And then they better tell me what the fuck she told them. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you really need to build this community around your children and, you know, take the ego out of it. And I think that sort of that perspective for me takes the weight and the pressure off of me to be this perfect thing, right? Like, I don't have it all figured out. Yeah. And my mom didn't have it all figured out when she had me. No, it's just like, it's so stupid, I think, to think that, you know, you have to have it all figured out. And this applies to business too, right? That's why I'm always big on, like, you know what? Yeah, I don't know what the exit strategy is. I hate when people ask me that. What's the exit strategy? I don't fucking know. I just got started here.
Yeah, or better yet, well, explain to me, like, your business model and how are you going to scale? Like, shut up. I just, like, can you, like, go mind your own business? Like, I probably bring in more revenue than you and, like, more importantly, profit. So just be quiet. Like, don't tell me what I need to do.
Right.
Focus on you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something I certainly demonstrated in November last year when I scaled back, and I'm happier than ever, you know, because I don't need to have all these different locations, you know, and all that overhead, and you know, for what? Just to show face? Like, I have all these spaces. It's so stupid.
Right.
Like,
and you did the right thing. You did the right thing for you and your business, and you have your vision.
Yeah.
And everybody's got their own stuff, and it's like, just focus on you. Like, like telling people what to do. Yeah.
So this is like something that I think EO is like really, it's always about scaling. I mean, we've talked about this, how it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to scale? 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 I'm like, I'm not scaling anything. Maybe a mountain. I will go scale a mountain. But what I did love about EO is I went scuba diving.
So fun.
For our form retreat, and it was the most incredible experience ever. I was scared. I was like definitely like, okay, I'm gonna fall backwards off of a boat with a tank on my back, and then I'm gonna breathe underwater. It was cool. But so that part of it is like changing. Like, I enjoy spending time with people that do have a big vision, big ideas, want to push themselves, want to challenge themselves, and like really push themselves to the limit. And my definition was that. Like, I literally was scared. And then I did it anyway because I could not.
I love it.
Make it happen.
I love when people do things that you're like, this is going to scare the shit out of me, but I know I'm going to love it, and I know I'm going to reflect back on it. And, you know, a bunch of years ago, I had this rocket list to 40, and it was all of these things on it from big to small that I was like, you know what? These are things like, I can't believe I haven't done that yet, and I just want to do them. And so one of the things was my husband and I went skydiving. And I was like, that was awesome. I would do that. Like, if anybody wanted to go skydiving again, I would totally go skydiving again. And he is scared of heights. And he had always wanted to do it. And he was talking about it. And I was like, we're just doing it.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
Wow, right? That's cool. And you did it together?
Yeah. It was cool. He was like, you know, the dog, like this, not wanting to get out of the plane, where he's got like all this stuff. And I was like, wee! Let's go.
So he's an entrepreneur also?
No, he is not. He's an employee. He works for the New York State Energy Research Development Authority. He is all things like saving the world, sustainability, climate change. You know, he's got a master's in environmental public policy, and he loves the industry. They do super cool things for New York State and beyond. And so, yeah, he's all into that. And
that's good. That's good that he likes that.
Yes, there has to be those people.
Yeah,
that,
we need
have a love for.
Exactly. Yes, awesome. So, but it's a high stress, like high intense job. Like, I mean, how does that working with the both of you? In general, like, you're both working from home. Is he like ambitious? Is he like hustler?
Yeah. So we're actually exact opposite personalities.
Oh my God, that's like me and Mark. So you're like the alpha, intense, extrovert, hustle, 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 go, 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 grind, schedules, organization, and then he's like chill, cool as a cucumber.
No, he's like a nervous Nelly. He's a little nervous, right? But he's calm. He he's a caretaker for a profile, right? He loves to take care of anybody in it. Our lovely neighbor next door who just lost her husband, loves to take care of Victoria. Make sure that everybody's good.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but his job is actually pretty intense, right? What they do. And he's in the office most days. He travels a bunch. And so we just figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. We've been together for so long that we just block and tackle where we need to. We just know how to do it. And it's just all right, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I love that.
I've come across this a number of times, which is it's really frustrating for me as an outside person, right? And, when I was an employee, I obviously saw it firsthand. But it was the leaders who didn't understand that they should be leading by example. It was more the ego where I was like, well, I'm a CEO, so you should be respecting me. Respect goes both ways, right? Give respect to get respect. Lead by example. Lead in a manner where you want people to follow. Don't just think because you started and own this business, which is a huge thing, that you can behave in a manner that is not that of a leader, right? And it's where there's a lack of empathy out there, right? And I don't mean that we're all sitting around in a circle crying together. I'm have a little, especially during COVID, I was glad to see that people were okay, people are handling a lot. I didn't have a kid then. I can't imagine, how did you do that? With children and working, and they were at home, and I was holy shit. Right, that's huge. So where's the empathy? I did see the empathy, but then it was COVID's over. Empathy's out the window. And I'm okay, everyone. And so I just go back to seeing these leaders that they just think that they have gotten this role. Yes, a lot of them have earned it in a way, but it's how are you behaving right now? How are you behaving? And are you leading in a way that others want to follow?
Well, there's a lack, nobody's eating humble pie in the morning anymore. That's just one thing that, I don't even know that it was my parents. I think it was actually Mark who instilled this in me. He used to always tell me just humble pie, especially when we were opening up Paint and Sip and it was doing really well. And I think he started to see oh, this is going to go to her head and I'm never going to live with her like this. He would tell me, he's just humble, humility.
Absolutely.
It ain't going to be like this forever.
Right.
It's it ebbs and flows. So humble pie for breakfast every day.
100%.
And I think that's the biggest piece for me is it's people forget where they come from. They forget that it's not always going to be sunshine and roses, and they don't have people around them that are confident in themselves to call them out on it.
Right.
So I think there's I don't know. I just always, even it's stupid shit too, where it's I love taking out the trash at pallet, right? That's not anybody else's job but mine. It's not, it really isn't anybody else's job. I don't think we put that on our organizational chart, responsibilities. But it's just one of those things. And we had an event here on Thursday, and somebody, she wasn't a member, came to an event and was I thought it was so cool that you took out the trash. And it's people do recognize that,
Yeah.
So yes, the trash needs to be taken out. And who am I to think somebody else is going to come up behind me and do that, So I don't know. Yeah, ego, not that I don't have one. I just think it's it's proportioned to the rest of my character traits.
Yeah. I don't think you have an ego. I think
Is it a trait? Is it a character trait?
Ego?
I've been told that. People are wow, you don't have an ego. And it's well, I don't think that that's synonymous with leader.
Right. Yeah.
Or it shouldn't be.
No. Yeah. So ego is not synonymous with leadership, right? The best leaders that I know are the most humble. They have humility. They haven't forgotten where they came from, how they built their business with the right people. They haven't, what do they call it? Retelling history. They haven't created a story where they're well, yeah, of course. I started my business in 6 months. I had $10 million. No, you didn't, right? How about you just help everybody by just telling the real story, because people will appreciate that even more. How did you grow? How did you evolve, right? Tell us the nitty gritty. That's how I learn.
Yeah, and I think, too, it's just acknowledging that you're still figuring it out, right? I know that this is like overused. Like, you know, I say Beyonce's got coaches. Beyonce's got people who train her how to sing, train her how to choreograph, how to dance, now she's breaking into country music. You think she's not being challenged? You don't think she's got people around her who are saying, bitch, you could better do that again because it didn't look right, or don't talk to people like, or whatever it is. It's like leaders continue to be lifelong learners.
Absolutely.
And it's important to continue to demonstrate
Every coach has a coach, right? Every leader has a coach. Everybody should have those people, whether it's a coach or whatever, right? It's just you are the sum of the 5 people closest to you, right? And who are those people, right? Who have you surrounded you? We all have layers, right? We've got the layer closest to us and so on and so forth. And so I always ask myself, all right, am I surrounding myself with the people that bring out the best in me, right? Do I get up every day and I'm like, what can I do better than I did yesterday?
Yeah.
Right? And I have those people that I can call at any time where we'll laugh our asses off, we'll solve problems, but I'm better because when I get off the phone with them.
Yeah. Right. And those people aren't necessarily your same age or older than you, right? I really love hanging out with younger people because they have a totally different perspective on the world. And in a lot of ways it's a better perspective. And it's not they haven't been scarred yet with reality. Right. But it's impactful for me to, you know, again, not just to have my girls have people that they can call on and be around, but me, myself, and I. Constantly just like learning you can the better that you are as a learner or like being a student of life, the easier you can call people, like you can recognize when people aren't. Does that make sense? Like you can say that in a more eloquent way than I can. But you know what I'm saying? Like the more that you embrace that you are a student of life and you're a lifelong learner, the easier you can pick up on people's bullshit. And it's so fun. Yeah,
absolutely. And the people that immediately I'm like, I'll be nice, I'll be respectful, but the ones who immediately are like, I got that. I don't need to read that, learn that, talk to that person. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, you do.
Or just like they're triggered by you, you know, like you show up in a room, you're your authentic self and you're just like having a good old fucking time, being friendly, connecting. Hello, how you doing? And they're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm always sort of just like, and I can see it more clearly now when that happens. And maybe it's just happening more often. Maybe I'm not too much, but like to some people I am too much and those people are just not my people.
You know, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. And that's okay, right? I met a ton of people where I'm like, you know what? It's lovely to meet you, but we're good.
We will never speak again.
We are good. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We could chat forever. And maybe the next time you come on the podcast, you'll bring Victoria. She'll have to be talking and we can interview her.
Oh, yeah. She'll tell you what's up.
How can people get in touch?
Oh, my God. So I'm like a social media misfit. As in, like, I don't really...
Do you have a website?
Of course, yes. So it's stragilityllc.com. And also, I am on LinkedIn. Catharine Potvin is on LinkedIn.
Catharine with the A-R-I-N-E.
You got it, girl. Catharine.
Right.
And then Stragility does have Instagram, but nothing's been posted for like 2 years because I don't have a social media person. And again, I won't do it myself.
Well, I mean, I think it's relationships are how you get your business.
That's my jam. And, it'll always be that way. And I know, like, that's why I do hire the social media consultants to like keep me relevant in that way, shape, or form. But I'm also such a pain in the ass because they're like, well, can we post this? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. So anyways, that's
referrals, word of mouth. I mean, that's like the best way to grow your business, in my opinion. It's the most, longevity, or like, what do you call that? Like long-lasting relationships are the ones that are through word of mouth.
Yes.
Because, and the work that you do is so personal and like, intimate that it's like, if someone's going to refer you, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like not good with my words today, but
it's all right. It's all right. No, referrals are amazing. And we really look to build those relationships with the clients. Our retention rate is super high, even though the scope may change, because we just, like, when we find the right people, we want to continue working with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so thank you for having me.
Thank you for being
super fun.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks.